Hello and welcome. You're watching Good Morning India. I'm Gargi Rawat. Up ahead, we'll get you all the latest you need to know, the latest on Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Also, it's the last day of campaigning ahead of the next phase of UP polls. Let's take a look at the headlines we're tracking at this hour. It's day 2 of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The Ukraine president says 137 people, soldiers and civilians, have been killed. US President Joe Biden unveils harsh new sanctions on Russia meant to punish the country for its full-scale invasion of Ukraine, which include export blocks on technology. Reports that police in Russia have arrested nearly 1,400 people at anti-war protests staged in cities across the country. Prime Minister Narendra Modi speaks to Russian President Vladimir Putin over the phone, appeals for immediate end to the violence and return to the path of diplomatic dialogue. Thousands of Indian students are stuck in Ukraine, desperate to get home, make appeals for help. And on the last day of campaigning ahead of the 5th phase of elections in Uttar Pradesh, Amit Shah to hold several rallies. Akhilesh Yadav will be in Ayodhya today, while Rahul Gandhi and Priyanka Gandhi to hold a joint meeting in Amethi. Russian forces continue a full-scale assault on Ukraine as its military attacks the country from the north, east and south. The Ukrainian President Zelensky has said that 137 Ukrainian citizens, both soldiers and civilians, died on Thursday when Russia began its attack. Russians have also seized control of the Chernobyl complex, the site of the world's worst nuclear disaster.
Попередніми даними, на жаль, ми втратили за сьогодні вже 137 наших героїв, наших громадян. З них 10 офіцерів. Поранено 316.
Now, US President Joe Biden on Thursday unveiled harsh new sanctions on Russia meant to punish the country for its full-scale invasion of Ukraine, calling out President Vladimir Putin for his aggression, even as he acknowledged it would take time for the new measures to alter Putin's behavior.
Putin declared his war within moments. Putin is the aggressor. Putin chose this war. And now he and his country will bear the consequences. Today, I'm authorizing additional strong sanctions and new limitations on what can be exported to Russia. This is going to impose severe cost on the Russian economy, both immediately and over time. Our forces are not and will not be engaged in the conflict with Russia in Ukraine. Our forces are not going to Europe to fight in Ukraine, but to defend our NATO allies and reassure those allies in the East.
Now, the White House has said the latest round of robust sanctions it imposed on Russia for its invasion of Ukraine will ensure that Putin's decision will be a strategic failure. Deputy National Security Advisor Dalip Singh said the sanctions imposed by the administration are without question the most consequential ever levied on Russia and arguably the most consequential ever levied in history.
The sanctions measures we imposed today, I think without question, were the most consequential ever levied on Russia and arguably the most consequential ever levied in history, if you look at the aggregate financial impact on Russia. So that's why we took the measures that we did. And we did so because we could move in lockstep with our allies and partners.
And Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida announced additional sanctions on Friday after attending a meeting with G7 leaders to discuss Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Now, back in Russia, there are reports of protests against a Ukrainian invasion. There were gatherings of people in St. Petersburg protesting the invasion. In fact, protests in other cities were also reported. Just before the attack on Ukraine, President Zelensky had made a passionate and direct appeal to people of Russia to reject the attack. There are reports that hundreds have been held by the police. Now the big question, will Putin's invasion lead to war in Europe? World condemns Putin and China urges restraint. NATO says it is not moving troops to Ukraine as of now.
Today, in concert with our allies, we will agree a massive package of economic sanctions designed in time to hobble the Russian economy. And to that end, we must also collectively cease the dependence on Russian oil and gas that for too long has given Putin his grip on Western politics.
President Putin, in the name of humanity, bring your troops back to Russia. In the name of humanity, do not allow to start in Europe what could be the worst war since the beginning of the century.
中方正在密切地关注最新的事态，我们也呼吁各方保持克制，避免局势失控。关于乌克兰问题呢，我们已经多次表明了我们的立场。乌克兰问题是有着非常複雜的歷史背景和經緯，演變到了今天這種局面。
今回のロシアによる侵攻は力による一方的な現状変更を認めないとの国際秩序の根幹を揺るがすものであり、ロシアを強く非難するとともに、米国をはじめとする国際社会と連携して迅速に対処してまいります。
Together with the international community, we are banding together in strong terms to condemn these outrageous acts in the strongest possible terms. We denounce what are unilateral hostile actions in Ukraine. Russia is flagrantly breaching international law and the UN Charter. Russia has chosen war.
Dieser 24. Februar ist ein furchtbarer Tag für die Ukraine und ein düsterer Tag für Europa. Mit seinem Angriff auf die Ukraine bricht der russische Präsident Putin abermals eklatant das Völkerrecht. Putin bringt damit Leid und Zerstörung über seine direkten Nachbarn. Er verletzt die Souveränität und die Grenzen der Ukraine. Er gefährdet das Leben von unzähligen Unschuldigen in der Ukraine, dem Brudervolk Russlands.
This is a grave moment for the security of Europe. Russia's unjustified and unprovoked attack on Ukraine is putting countless innocent lives at risk. With air and missile attacks, ground forces and special forces from multiple directions targeting military infrastructure and major urban centers. This is a deliberate, cold-blooded and long-planned invasion.
Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi dialed the Russian President Vladimir Putin yesterday, appealing for an immediate end to the violence in Ukraine. The conversation came hours after Ukraine's urgent appeal to India for intervention. A statement from the Prime Minister's office said Prime Minister Modi called for concerted efforts from all sides to return to the path of diplomatic negotiations and dialogue. He reiterated his long-standing conviction that the difference between Russia and the NATO group can only be resolved through honest and sincere dialogue. The statement read, President Putin had briefed Prime Minister Modi about the recent developments regarding Ukraine. Now, with the Ukrainian airspace closed, India said it was sending government teams to the land borders of Ukraine to help evacuate Indians in need of assistance. Foreign Secretary Harsh Vardhan Shringla said that the topmost priority of the government is the safety of Indians in Ukraine.
The Prime Minister has conveyed at the CCS meeting that the topmost priority of the government is the safety and security of Indian nationals, including Indian students, and their evacuation from Ukraine. और जो सेफ रूट्स हैं जैसे आपने कहा वो भी आइडेंटिफाई हो गए। मैंने आपको बताया था कि बाय रोड अगर कीव से आपको जाना हो तो पोलैंड के लिए 9 घंटे का रास्ता है और रोमानिया के लिए करीब 12 घंटे का रास्ता है, तो वो रास्ता भी मैप आउट हो गया है।
With Russia invading Ukraine, India today called for an immediate de-escalation while speaking at an emergency session of the United Nations Security Council.
We call for restraint on all sides. The immediate priority is de-escalation of tensions We are convinced that this issue can only be resolved through diplomatic dialogue. We need to give space to the recent initiatives undertaken by parties which seek to diffuse tensions.
India also said it is working on evacuating over 20,000 Indian nationals stuck in Ukraine.
I underline once again that more than 20,000 Indian nationals, including students, are located in different parts of Ukraine, including in its border areas. We are facilitating the return of all Indian nationals, including students, as may be required.
The Indian Embassy in Ukraine, in a series of advisories and a message from the ambassador Partha Satpathy, said the Ukrainian airspace is closed. Alternative arrangements are being made for the evacuation of Indian nationals. Please carry your passports and necessary documents on you at all times. Those stranded in Kiev, try and stay with friends and colleagues in Kiev. The government of India is working on mission mode to find a solution. In case you are in an area where there are air raids, Google Maps has a list of nearby bomb shelters. Meanwhile, in India, Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan urged the centre to intensify its evacuation measures and also wrote a letter to External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar flagging that at least 2,320 students from Kerala are in Ukraine. At the Ministry of External Affairs, the control room has been expanded and made operational 24/7.
വിമാനമാർഗം അവിടെ നിന്ന് ഇന്ത്യക്കാരെ തിരികെ എത്തിക്കാനുള്ള നടപടികൾ റദ്ദ് ചെയ്തിരിക്കുകയാണ്. ബദൽ സംവിധാനങ്ങൾ ഏർപ്പെടുത്താനുള്ള അടിയന്തരമായിട്ടുള്ള നടപടികൾ ആസൂത്രണം ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുകയാണ്. ഈ ദൗത്യത്തിൽ ഇന്ത്യയുടെ എംബസിയെ സഹായിക്കാനായിട്ട് കൂടുതൽ നയതന്ത്ര ഉദ്യോഗസ്ഥന്മാരെ ആ മേഖലയിലേക്ക് അയക്കാനും കേന്ദ്ര സർക്കാർ വിദേശകാര്യ മന്ത്രാലയം തീരുമാനമെടുത്തിട്ടുണ്ട്.
India is one of the few countries which haven't directly criticized Russia's decision to send troops across the Ukraine border and has been calling for de-escalation on both sides.
India has so far adopted a diplomatic approach to the Russia-Ukraine conflict, but with thousands of Indians still stuck in Ukraine, it now also has a massive evacuation operation before it, which has become all the more challenging due to the closure of the airspace. Bureau report for NDTV.
Now, US President Joe Biden announced tougher sanctions against Russia, and in that press conference that he held, he was also asked about India's stand on Russia. Here's what he said.
Sir, India, which is a major defense partner of the United States, is India fully with you on the issue of Ukraine and Russia?
We're in consultation with India today. We haven't resolved that completely.